Well, your troubles are over. Do you see the doors unlocked there?
Yes, you're my hero. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Remote door unlock is standard on most Chevy models. Visit OnStar.com for details and system limitations.
Everybody's talking at me.
Chuck Wlder here. Want to go to my guest Frank Savato, Executive Director and Director of Terrorism Research for BasicProject.org. He is a member of the International Analyst Network and Managing Editor for New Media Journal. Frank, welcome back to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to talk to you again, Chuck.
You too, sir. And, I got to tell you, the first thing you sent me, I think it came from Discover the Networks. Was that about her bio? Is that where that source is?
Absolutely. The bio of Elena Kagan came first. The first little bit of exploration I did into her, I always go straight to Discover the Network, so I'm trying to find out about somebody, and boy, that was just telling.
That was a shocker, you know, and if I was on the voting committee, all right, for the Supreme Court nominee, when you put down Ronald Reagan, that is almost an automatic no in my opinion, but of course you always got to give people a benefit of a doubt. But when she said, because her gut response to Reagan being elected was the world had gone mad. It was like, what? We're not going to have a chance to create socialism in the United States with this guy around? Do you think that's what she was thinking?
Well, I don't think that's what she was thinking. I know that's what she was thinking, and that's because of what was in her thesis from Princeton, titled To the Final Conflict, Socialism in New York, 1900 to 1933. The first red flag, no pun intended, is when somebody's writing about how good socialism is in their college thesis paper. That's always troubling to me. But the most troubling thing, and this is what sparked me to look at her a little bit more, was this quote from her thesis. In our times, a coherent socialist movement is nowhere to be found in the United States. Americans are more likely to speak of a golden past than of a golden future, of capitalism's glories than of socialism's greatness. As soon as I read those words, of socialism's greatness, the idea that she was a moderate nominee just flew out the window.
Is there any chance in the world, Frank, that someone asking her questions on her nomination, her confirmation, would bring this up? Are they going to bring this up and say, what do you mean by what you just said, Frank? What do you mean by that there, Elena?
If our elected officials were actually serving their constituents, if they were truly defending the Constitution of the United States, that would be the first question that they would bring up, because her thesis is not sealed. It's open. They should have this all in their dossier about her before they even sit down to question her. And if we truly had senators who were living up to their oath of protecting and defending the United States Constitution, they would have to ask her, how do you feel about socialism? Because you wrote glowingly about it in your college thesis paper. You're nominated for a position that is the last line of defense for the United States Constitution. We don't want to put somebody in that place who's going to be believing in socialism, because socialism is antithetical to Americanism and the American philosophy.
Maybe she'll just say that's the wise words from a Caucasian, or yes, that would work.
Well, she will have a cohort, a few cohorts on the bench should she get seated. But we really do have to. There is something we can do. You've got to go to discoverthenetworks.org or go to newmediajournal.us. Go to the Spotlight and download the PDF version, print it, and send it to your senators and say you need to ask this question. It sounds like she's someone who is very upset because we don't have a socialist system in this country. We can't have someone like that being a Supreme Court justice, period.
And as I mentioned, she's already stated, you know, that she believes like in one branch of government, forget, you know, the three, and just at the whim of whatever the president desires, you know, work more closely with his thoughts. In your article here that you gave me, you're talking about, let's see, 1991, she became an assistant professor at the University of Chicago Law School, and that's where she first hooked up with Barack Obama. And in 1993, she penned an article titled Regulation of Hate Speech and Pornography. Tell them what she elaborated on in that piece.
Oh, yeah. She was the quote that was shocking in that piece, and there's many things that are shocking about her, and something that came out last week is shocking. I'll get to that in a minute. Quote, I take it as a given that we live in a society marred by racial and gender inequality, that certain forms of speech perpetuate and promote this inequality, and that the uncoerced disappearance of such speech would be cause for great elation. Now, I don't know anyone who believes in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, the part of it that establishes free speech, especially free political speech, that would be elated at censorship. This says, because I don't like what I'm hearing, and I'm not a champion of pornography, I'm not a champion of lewd comments and hate speech and the like, but we live in a country that guarantees the protection of political free speech. For her to say that she would be elated if it just disappeared, it is very concerning. So the second question, besides do you actually celebrate socialism, Ms. Kagan, is do you actually stand for the sanctity of the First Amendment that guarantees free speech, whether you disagree with it, find it distasteful, offensive, or not?
Yeah, and I'm like concerned whenever I see her talking about regulation of hate speech. Okay, well, her guy, President Obama, he snuck in the hate crimes bill, attached it to the defense bill, still trying to figure out what in the world those two have in common. So she should be pretty happy about that if she is gay, which she just doesn't want to come right out and holler up and down and jump up and down and say, yes, I am, and I'm proud of it. Now, you mentioned another thing you discovered last week. Does this have to do with her wanting certain books not published?
No, this actually has to do with lawsuits that were filed against the Saudi royal family after 9/11.
Ah, yes, okay.
There were families that wanted to bring suit against the Saudi royal family because there were lines of finance going from the Saudi royal family to the Al-Qaeda network, to people who were financing Al-Qaeda, even to people who were financing the attacks on New York on the World Trade Center. And she said, and this is from the Raw Story and alertnet.org. One is an independent news source, one is affiliated with Reuters. Kagan, acting as President Obama's Solicitor General, argued that the case should not be heard even if evidence proved that the Saudis helped underwrite al-Qaeda, because it would interfere with U.S. foreign policy with the oil-rich nation. She posited that the princes are immune from petitioners' claims because of the potentially significant foreign relations consequences of subjecting another sovereign state to suit. So what she was saying is, we don't have a right to actually go after the people who financed al-Qaeda and the killing of 3,000 Americans on 9/11. But Saudi royals can sue authors in the United States for slander and defamation, and we have to let that lawsuit come through.